It's
It's
shocking,
huge.
actually, how many patients that we treat in our clinics that have thyroid disorders. So I wanted to lead off
Yeah.
the question today with why is it that we're seeing such this a high prevalence of thyroid disorders?
Well, it's not just that we're seeing a high prevalence of thyroid disorders, we're seeing a high prevalence of chronic disease in general, and we're seeing a high prevalence of all endocrine, or in other words, hormone problems in women, particularly, largely because our systems are a little bit more keyed into what's going in our hormones. And so the bigger question is, why are we having all this chronic disease? Why are we having all these endocrine problems? And that kind of dials into how we think about our health, right? Do we think about our health as just, oh, I wake up today and I have a thyroid problem, or I wake up today and I have diabetes, or I wake up today and I have endometriosis? No, it's a constellation of complex factors that add together. So it's our diet, it's our modern American diet, or as it's ironically called, the SAD, or standard American diet. It is the 80,000 some odd environmental toxins that are in our homes, in our water, in our food, in our air, that our grandmothers and great grandmothers literally weren't exposed to because they didn't exist. It's the chronic, unrelenting stress that we're under.
Hmm.
And then it's not just the things that we are getting, like environmental toxin exposure, it's the things that we're not getting. So it's not just that we're getting junk food and getting exposed to plastics left and right and stress. It's that we're also often depleted or deficient in the very nutrients and the sleep and the relaxation that we need that counterbalance that kind of overload that we're getting. And when you add it all together, it affects our health. And then our hormones are so exquisitely sensitive. I mean, if you think about it, it's like if you imagine like one teardrop in an Olympic sized swimming pool, that's sort of a rough equivalent, and probably even a little bit more than the amount of hormone that it takes to establish your menstrual cycle or for your thyroid hormones to work. So tiny little disruptions can add up. And what we see is a lot of disruption in women's thyroid health.
Yes, I love that you're focusing on all those things. I think it's so important because it is so multifactorial. And so bringing that to light is important, because I think there's so many people who are just diagnosed and don't really even understand why they have a thyroid condition.
Exactly. It also explains why medication, while it can be a solution to symptoms or to providing something, like if your thyroid stops working and you need thyroid hormone, then the medication can become a really important part of feeling better.
Mm-hmm.
But just doing the medication doesn't solve the problem. And just waiting, I mean, like you said, Drew, 1 in 8 women is going to have a thyroid problem in our lifetime. That means it's not enough to just sort of like wait and see, oh, am I one of the people who randomly gets this, but living in a healthful way so that as much as possible we can prevent those downstream consequences.
Yeah, I'm curious, where are you at in your career now with prescribing thyroid hormone? Because I think all of us have gone through sort of an up and down phase of like prescribing more, prescribing less. I know I'm in a lesser prescribing phase right now because I'm really trying to work on all the factors that you addressed in the beginning. So where are you now with prescribing hormone? Tell us.
Yeah, I've always been kind of moderate about it, in the sense that I don't diagnose everyone who comes in with fatigue and weight gain with a thyroid problem. I'm very meticulous about testing and making sure that they actually do have a thyroid problem. And then depending on what their thyroid problem is and how significant it is, like 1, how symptomatic and miserable are they? And 2, how off are their labs from normal? And if there's just a little bit of discrepancy and they're feeling not great, but not like, I can't get out of bed, my hair is falling out, pretty extreme, and their preference is to try a more natural therapeutic approach first, I'll always start with that. And I might start with that for 6 weeks, 12 weeks, 6 months. It really depends on how they're feeling, how their labs are, and what their personal desire is. The exceptions are if someone's feeling really, they're really depressed, they're super anxious, they're very, very symptomatic, or their labs are they're so off, so out of range that it puts them at risk of cognitive problems or heart problems, then I may suggest medication kind of at the get-go. The biggest exception to that, and when I will almost always use medication, is someone who's trying to get pregnant and has a fertility problem, because that's when you want really, really tightly controlled thyroid labs for optimal fertility. And someone who's pregnant, you really have to have normal health, optimized thyroid during pregnancy for your own health as a pregnant mama, but also for baby's thyroid development. So in that case, even if it's just a little bit off, then I will suggest that we use thyroid medication. But I've had so many people come to me over the years from other, integrative or even conventional physicians who didn't have a proper thyroid workup, were put on medication that they really never needed. And so I often take people off of it when they don't need it too.